Alrighty, sports fans, welcome to our NBA video here today for Monday, October 24th, 2022. My name is Brock Page, and I've been doing sports picks for free right here on YouTube since 2016. I also sell my personal sports bets on patreon.com/BrockPage. I'm currently 5-0 in my last 5 crowd pleaser teasers on that site. And I'll include a link for that play in the description section below. I currently have over 620 members who are signed up and active on that site right now. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into some free content here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Pacers at the Sixers, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Philadelphia is minus 12.5, totals 228. And I'll tell you what, for a team laying a dozen points in this spot here, well, the Sixers just aren't looking too good right now. They're 0-3 to start this season, and they failed to cover in all of those ball games. And in addition to their offensive struggles, these guys are arguably the worst offensive rebounding team in the game. They're facing a Pacer team on the other side of things who's having little issue getting to the basket. They're in the top 5 in the game in scoring. And they're led by Tyrese Halliburton, who's averaging 25 points a night. Meanwhile, the youngster, Benny Mathurin, he's shooting over 52% from three land. When it comes to the injury report, Turner's out, Tice is questionable. When it comes to the total, the Pacers saw their last 2 straight get over the number. They also went 7-3 to the over in their last 10 meetings with Philly. So if you're into historical trends, certainly want to think about that one there. I'm going to lean toward the Pacers plus 12.5 over 228. Next ball game, it is going to be Raptors at the Heat, 7:30 East. Miami is minus 3.5, totals 215. But despite being favored, Miami failed to cover the spread in all 3 games this season. They're also having a tough time getting to the hoop. They're currently in the bottom 10 in scoring. Now they're facing a Toronto team who's done a pretty nice job on the defensive end of the court. They're in the top 10 in fewest points allowed. And in addition to that, they've been rebounding very well on defense. Pascal Siakam, he's averaging double-digit boards a game, 27 points a night as well for Siakam, doing a good job, getting to the basket. Meanwhile, Gary Trent Jr., he's drilling 41% of his shots from downtown. Now, injury-wise, Porter, Boucher, and Barnes are questionable for the Raptors. Meanwhile, for Miami, Oladipo and Yurtseven, they are listed as questionable. When it comes to the total, Miami averaged only 105 points a game in their last 10 meetings with Toronto. Meanwhile, the Raptors on the other side, they saw 2 out of their last 3 this year stay under the line. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Toronto plus 3.5, under 215. Next ball game I have for it is going to be Magic at the Knicks, 7:30 p.m. East. The New York Knicks are minus 7.5, totals 219 and a hook. Now the Knicks are 2-0 against the spread to start the year, and they're doing a great job of grabbing rebounds offensively. These guys are actually in the top 3 right now in the entire NBA in offensive boards. And they're led by Julius Randle, who's actually making over 44% of his three-pointers. They're facing a winless Orlando team who's clearly in tank mode already, just to right off the bat. Don't even pretend like we have any interest in winning ball games. The Magic, they're one of the worst teams in the league right now in guarding the 3 ball. I believe teams are making like 40% of their three-pointers against them, probably more than that. But yeah, they're amongst the worst teams in the league in guarding the 3 ball. And on the offensive end of the court, the Magic's actually in the bottom 10 in scoring. No real surprise there. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Harris and Isaac are out. Fultz, Wagner, and Suggs are questionable. Meanwhile, when it comes to the total, 2 out of Orlando's last 3 did get over the line. Meanwhile, the Knicks are 2-0 to the over this year themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Knicks, minus 7.5, over 219 and a hook. Next ball game, Celtics Bulls, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Boston's minus 6 on the road here. Totals 226. Now, Boston's been an offensive juggernaut this season. Not only are they 3-0 in the year, they're also leading the league in shooting from the field. Jason Tatum scoring 34 points a night, and he's averaging 8 rebounds. Meanwhile, Grant Williams is making a staggering 80% of his three-pointers right now. Now, they're facing a Bulls team on the other side of things who lost their last 2 straight. And they have significant problems on defense. As a matter of fact, the Bulls are dead last in the league in guarding the field goal. When it comes to the injury report, Lonzo Ball is still out with a knee. Meanwhile, for Boston, Al Horford's questionable for them. When it comes to the number, 2 out of Boston's last 3 did get over the total. Meanwhile, the Bulls went 2-1 to the over in their last 3 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Boston -6 over 226. Next matchup, Nets, Grizzlies, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Memphis is -1.5, totals 232. Now, Memphis hasn't been shooting all too well. They're actually in the bottom 5 in field goal percentage, and they're shooting only 69% from the stripe. Meanwhile, defensively on the other end of the court, they're just allowing entirely too many points. They're almost dead last in the league right now in points allowed per game. They're facing Kevin Durant here tonight, who's scoring 29 points a game himself. Meanwhile, Kyrie's getting 22 points a game as well. The Nets are actually coming fresh off a real nice win against the Raptors, where they held Toronto to just 105 points. Now, injury-wise, Warren's out, Curry's questionable. Meanwhile, for Memphis, Green, Brooks, Jackson, and Williams, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the scoring in this one, Memphis saw all 3 of their games this year get over the line. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Brooklyn. I'm going to lean toward the Nets +1.5 over 232. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be Spurs at the Timberwolves, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Minnesota's -9, totals 233.5. Now, the T-Wolves did win 2 of 3 to start the year, and they're leading the league in offensive rebounding. Now, Rudy Gobert, he's grabbing a staggering 18 points a game. He's also averaging 15 points. And speaking of the scoring, Anthony Edwards is averaging 23 points a night himself. They're facing a Spurs team who does give up a considerable amount of points themselves. They're actually in the bottom 3 in points allowed per game. When it comes to the total, the Spurs saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the number. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 against Minnesota. I'm going to lean toward the Timberwolves -9 over 233.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Jazz at the Rockets. And that'll be in I have it listed here at 10, but it looks like it's 8. Yeah, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Houston's -1 at home, believe it or not. Totals 231.5. Now, the winless Rockets are giving up more points a game than any other club in the league. They're facing a Utah squad who's leading the NBA in points per game themselves. Lauri Markkanen's averaging 24 points a night along with 9 rebounds. Meanwhile, Kelly Olynyk's drilling 75% of his three-pointers. Now, the undefeated Jazz, they beat the likes of New Orleans, Minnesota, and Denver this year. When it comes to the injury report, Azubuike is questionable for Utah. Meanwhile, for Houston on the other side, Gordon, Fernando, Tate, and Washington are questionable for them. And when it comes to total, these guys' last 2 straight did get over the number. I'm talking about Houston. Meanwhile, on the other side, Utah saw their last 2 get over the line as well. I'm going to lean toward the Jazz +1 over 231.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the video. It is going to be Nuggets at the Blazers, 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Denver's -5, totals 227. Now, the visiting Nuggets did fail to cover in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. They're also giving up a whole bunch of points. They're in the bottom 5 in points allowed per contest. They're going to have to slow down Damian Lillard, who's scoring 34 points a game. He's shooting 93% from the foul line. Meanwhile, Jeremy Grant's averaging 15 points a night, and he does a great job shooting from long range. Now, the undefeated Blazers on the other side of things, they've played some pretty tough defense themselves. They're actually amongst the leaders in the West in fewest points allowed. Definitely a stark contrast from where they were defensively over the past couple of seasons. Definitely, over the past couple of years, not talking about the Blazers' defense all that much. But this year, different story. Like I said, they're amongst the leaders in the West right now in fewest points allowed per game. Now, injury-wise, Peyton, Watford, and Sarr, they're still out. Meanwhile, for Denver, Colin Gillespie's still out with a leg. When it comes to the total, the Blazers are 3-0 to the under to start the year. I'm going to lean toward Portland +5, under 227. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. I like the Pacers +12.5, over 228. Toronto +3.5, under 215. New York Knicks -7.5, over 219 and a hook. Boston -6, over 226. Brooklyn +1.5, over 232. Minnesota -9, over 233.5. Utah +1, over 231 and a hook. With my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward Portland +5, under 227.